I want to talk to the Guardian newspaper to respond to the questions that were sent to me for the Guardian newspaper, and I want to answer the 6 questions as follows. First, question 1. You have written about materially minded churches in Kenya. Could you describe the general state of the Pentecostal movement in your country? That is Kenya. And I would like to say, my view on Pentecostal movement in Kenya of the 21st century is that it is one of the most influential religious movements in Kenya. In a population of about 54 million people, Pentecostals or members of the Pentecostal churches in total range from 30 to 35%. Considering that the British colonial government did not encourage Pentecostalism before 1963, when colonialism ended, we can easily conclude that it is one of the fastest growing religious movements in Kenya. You can say it is one of the fastest growing religious movement in Kenya, if not actually the fastest. It's one of the fastest. I should say it's the fastest growing movement in Kenya. That is a state in Kenya that Pentecostalism is moving very fast. It wasn't there by 1963 in the sense it is today. It was just a tiny fraction that was there. But today you can hear figures. You see here Full Gospel Churches of Kenya, Pentecostal church, has over 1 million people. Second, it also shows that Kenya is one of the most Pentecostal countries in Africa and the rest of the world. And although the world data tells us that Ghana leads in terms of percentage at 28.3%, which translates to about 9 million Pentecostals from Ghana. Kenya, in my view, is ahead of Ghana in terms of percentage and actual figures, that almost above 15 million Pentecostals in Kenya. You can also think about the distribution of Pentecostals in terms of percentage and think of another country such as Barbados at 19.5%, which just translates to a mere 55,000 Pentecostals in Barbados, a very small, a very tiny country. Another general comment that I want to make on Pentecostalism in Kenya is its ability to easily resonate with indigenous cultures. This is in terms of their vibrant modes of worship. You can see their noisiness, their forms of hospitality that appears to reach the lowest in society, their singing, dancing characteristics, and so on. Such traits are common in Africa's indigenous religiosity. It's so common in African indigenous religiosity. Hence, post-colonial Africa has to dance with the rhythms of Pentecostalism, which are influential across the social religious divides. If you visit the mainstream churches, as in the case of Roman Catholics, the Methodists, and the Anglicans, for instance, you find some elements of Pentecostalism in them. If you visit political rallies or campaigns, especially during the electioneering period, you will find some of the gospel artists, mainly from the Pentecostal wing, are the ones who are performing. Hence, they are invited to help the candidates to influence political events, the outcome of the electioneering, through their vibrant and or captivating music. Those are some of the reasons they consider when inviting them. Sometimes politicians entice some Pentecostal gospel artists so that they can attend their political rallies and help in manipulating or swaying voters to his or her side. This now points to their influential nature right into the 21st century Kenya. Now, in social, religious, political affairs of the country, Kenya, in social, religious, political affairs of Kenya, Pentecostalism is being felt in the 21st century Kenya. Some are nominated or elected members of the county governments. Others are nominated or elected members of Kenya's bicameral parliament or legislature with the Senate and the National Assembly. So Pentecostals have stamped their presence there. Even in the parliament, you feel them. You feel their imprints. They are there. You can feel it. The second question was about how well known was Pastor Mackenzie as a religious leader prior to his arrest. How known was he before April 2023 when the Shakahora massacre came into the public limelight? My answer is yes, he was well known, and yes, he was, and no, he wasn't. On one hand, Paul Mackenzie was virtually unknown to most Kenyans before the Shakahora massacre that came to the limelight in April 2023. He was, however, known to some who saw him operate as a taxi driver in Nairobi, the Nairobi city, from 1997 to 2003, during which time he was arrested 4 times for his controversial sermons, but always acquitted or released due to lack of evidence. There was no evidence. There was lack of evidence. He would be released. Now, memorable moments include the October 2017 arrest by police and the rescue of 93 children same day. He's being charged for promoting radicalization and teaching children in an unregistered school at his church, saw him subsequently released on Kenya shillings 500,000 bond with the surety of a similar amount and subsequent acquittal. In October 2018, it came to the public limelight that the residents of Bungare in Magarini sub-county, Kilifi County, demolished one of his established churches as they protested false Christian teachings. On 12 April 2019, Paul Mackenzie was arrested for inciting his congregants against the government's new form of identity card that brought individual details together. It was referred to as Huduma number, meaning service number. Mackenzie called it satanic and likened it to the number of the beast seen in the biblical book of Revelation. The goal of registering Kenyans in this service number or Huduma number, Swahili one, Huduma, meaning service. So in this service number, which was initially started by President Mwai Kibaki era in 2005, was primarily to help individuals cut costs by harmonizing information and eventually address duplication of efforts. This means that a person with one service card did not have to carry the national identity card, driving license card, and other cards. One would be enough. So it was a good venture that would have brought all these cards we use, even in banks, together. By fighting a noble effort, Paul Mackenzie was certainly biting too much, and he publicized himself for the wrong reasons. After founding Good News International Ministries in 2003, that is his religious outfit, pockets of controversies went on, coming more and more open. Unlike the time he was just driving a taxi between 1997 to 2003. Now, after 2003, more controversies came up because pockets of controversies could now be heard, as he was charged 4 times, as I've noted, for those sermons again. He would always get acquitted due to this lack of evidence. So he went on becoming more and more controversial. He didn't stop there. He went on becoming more and more controversial. Perhaps his most publicized controversial event prior to the eruption of the April 2023 Shakahola explosion was in December 2018. During this December 2018, he rocked horns with the then Maridi Member of Parliament, Hon Aisha Jumwa, now the Public Service and Gender Cabinet Secretary in the Kenyan government. By then, Honorable Jumwa was protesting over radical teachings that saw children skipping school after they were brainwashed to believe that school education is satanic. Hon Jumwa also accused Paul Mackenzie of bribing security agencies in the area so as to cover him from his bizarre activities. And she went on to accuse the security officers from being compromised. By then, the Honorable Jumwa was vouching for the closure of Mackenzie's religious outfit, religio-cultic outfit. Honorable Jumwa then said, I quote, "It is absurd that despite having been arrested about 3 times and charged, the so-called pastor, is still scot-free and continues with his work of radicalizing school children." So that is the comments that were made that time, and we felt like it's like we didn't take action as a country. We assumed he can't do what he finally did. Now, in this Jumwa Mackenzie contest of December 2018, Paul Mackenzie rebutted her campaigns against his Good News International religio-cultic outfit and accused the MP of inciting the public against his good activities. He went on to warn all politicians who were opposed to religious activities and vowed to take action against them. He said then, if anyone feels offended about my sermons and teachings in accordance to the scripture, let them go to court and produce evidence. I'm not afraid to serve my God. End of quote. So that is Mackenzie, who talked tough. It's like he was collaborating with the security officers. No action was being taken, and maybe that's the reason why the government transferred all those security officers the moment this was discovered. Shortly after, a video was released in the social media that showed children aged between 6 to 17 years old renouncing education. They were renouncing education, a phenomenon that led to public outcry. In this 2-minute video, children are seen and heard saying education is ungodly as revealed by the Holy Scriptures. The matter died out shortly afterwards as Honorable Jumwa and other politicians got too busy crisscrossing the country in preparation for the 9th August 2022 general elections. Now, in this sense, Paul Mackenzie had come to the national limelight prior to the April 2023 explosion of the Shakahola massacre, where people were starved to death in order to meet Jesus Christ. You were denied food, yet they are eating. Him and his militia, his soldiers, they were eating comfortably. In fact, they were eating good diet. When these people are being forced, sacrifice and die, and you see, you start with the children first, deny them food. If they cry for food, you cane them, beat them, so that they die first, and then you come back, you die later, and then the pastor should die last. That's the hierarchy they were given, that the pastor should die last, and they should prepare for that. But children die first, parent in the middle, pastor is the one to die last and meet Jesus through starvation, denial of food. So the run-up to the August 2022 general elections covered him. In any case, the country did not know the extent to which the suicidal fasting activities would go. The bit that was a bit hidden was the fasting. The radicalization of the rejection of education was in the public domain, but the fasting aspect was a bit hidden to the Kenyan people. Generally, most Kenyans did not know much about the fasting till so many bodies were discovered to have been buried in a very haphazard way. Question 3. Were there any particularly Kenyan aspects of Pentecostalism, evangelism, or evangelicism present in these church teachings, or are they unique to Mackenzie? One can say yes and no. First, you may say no in terms of it is not common to see people fasting in Kenya to death. We have had it in Zambia where one pastor himself not telling people to fast. He fasted. He was aiming at 40 days like Jesus. That was 2019, a Zambian pastor, not a Kenyan, and then he died on the 20th day while fasting. But here is a man eating very well and dining very well, good food, and forcing people who had sold their properties, brought money to the church, like a good conman or con artist. Then after that, he turns against them and tells them, it is you to fast. You have brought all your properties here. Fast to death to meet Jesus. That's the only way. And you enforce it through force. And you have like a militia or soldiers to help you enforce fasting till somebody dies. So it was more of murder. That's where it is different. That's why it's unique. Now, but on the other hand, let me say that, like all new religious movements and their unique characteristics in Kenya and Africa and the rest of the world, of course, they have their mercurial characteristics or erratic characteristics or ambiguous characteristics. Paul Mackenzie's religio-cultic outfit initially poses as an African Pentecostal church that displays communality, hospitality, and care for the lowly and the lowest kanda in society and the needy in society, and the vibrant drama, dancing, singing outfits, the way it is in Africa. People are dancing community, people are singing community. You create that African Pentecostalism where element of the vibrancy and jumping and dancing and creating that impression that you are taking care of everybody is what Mackenzie did, like anybody else. Only that he went overboard, he went beyond, he had something extra. That's why I said it is yes and no. There are particular Kenyan aspects of Pentecostalism and evangelical ways of doing things, and there are things that are not Kenyan, never had in Kenya, been had in Kenya. So let me say, like African Pentecostal churches, Mackenzie's Good News International Ministries impresses you with evangelical faith. They will impress you first. They make you like them with that evangelical faith that takes the Bible seriously and believe in Jesus Christ as Savior and Lord. You kind of trust them and think these people are very serious. That is the impression you get first, till they start planning your death through fasting or through conning you, through forcing you to sell your property and come back in that Shakahora forest and die there in an isolated place where police may not know or ordinary people may not know unless you enter there, and they are not encouraging people to enter the 800-acre forest, very big forest. So evangelical faith that Pentecostals and other mainstream churches attempts to display comes from the Greek word euangelion, which means the good news or the gospel. In calling his religious outfit the Good News International, Mackenzie, you may say Mackenzie, was striving to confirm his evangelical leaning. This was a good bait that gave the impression that his outfit was focusing on the good news of salvation brought to sinners by Jesus Christ. The fourth question that I want to answer is, are there any aspects of recruitment of members or the types of people who joined the church that stand out to you, rather to me? Let me answer that question by saying yes, but not very directly. There were people connected to me because they are people I mentor. They are students of the university that I mentor. Although they did not come directly from the one I serve or I work with, there were those others from all over the country who were also enticed through various ways to get there. And when they got there, they felt hungry when they were forced to fast. The second day, they trying to dodge their way out of the forest, and they ran away. Some were brought back by force to come and die there by the people guarding that forest, and they came to tell the story. We read or we hear them in the social media for the videos that have been posted, and some of them we have been able to interact with, and they have told us it was bad. It was even being forced to kind of fast. I've been cautioning my students anyway against opting for individual founded churches to be very careful. These individual founded churches are largely Pentecostals or independent churches, African independent, but there are many Pentecostals. A church where the founder cannot be disciplined by a higher authority or be established, or by established structures such as synod, cannot be trusted, as we have all sinned and fallen short of God's glory. So the fact that we have university students who are trapped in the mix, the fact that we have university students who are trapped in the mix as video recordings in the social media and generally in the media, including mainstream media, point to the fact that there must be others who are directly connected to me. I may not have had a chance to interact with all or many of them at this stage, but of course, as time goes, I will interact with some who never didn't perish there in the Shakahola massacre. Question 5. Globally, we are seeing esoteric belief systems emerge out of the Pentecostal churches as lack of institutional oversight and online recruitment are incentivizing some preachers to go to the very extremes. Is this something you have observed in a Kenyan context? Yeah, we have this esoteric, they are calling themselves pastors, prophets. They are mysterious. Esoteric is somebody who is obscure, mysterious, abstruse, impenetrable, cryptic, yes, secretive, occultic, somebody who is esoteric. They are there. There are this esoteric belief system where people do things quietly and like in a manner like a secret movement, like devil worshippers. The things when they are in the forest, we couldn't tell that they were starving there, and why they are not returning without there's somebody cooking for them. We didn't know they are just waiting for Jesus through death, through the most painful form of death. So I should say, yes, the Kenyan context is awash with online recruitments where targets are incentivized. They are incentivized to go to the extreme. And for this to succeed, that incentivization is through promises for a better life, for a job, for a stress-free life. And sometimes young people are encouraged that they would find spouses upon getting into certain religious outfits. All these stories have been heard, though as we say they are secretive, they are esoterically done. Sometimes breakthroughs in all dimensions of life are promised. It can be getting passport and visa to go abroad and work there and get a good job. So the internet is used these days as a bait, and you are promised many things, and then you are harassed, you are things done to you, bizarre, they are not even, it's not easy to explain. Other times It's all about getting misbehaving teenage children behave well and so on. Sometimes a parent may find this teenage children are misbehaving, and then you approach them or they tell you, we shall show you how to get your children behave very well. So they start giving you certain esoteric, things you should always know alone. Don't tell your parents, don't tell your husband, don't tell your wife, don't tell your brothers and relatives. Just tell me, the pastor. So it is esoteric, done secretively and in a mysterious way. And that's how they were doing in Shakahola. You couldn't go back. You remain there, and you separate yourself from your people so that you become a friend of Good News International Ministry of this Paul Mackenzie. So I have observed these incentivizing gimmicks among religious cultic outfits, which pose as Pentecostals. They pose as genuine Pentecostals. They aren't. The last question: is there anything you'd like to add about Paul Mackenzie's church and the tragedy that has taken place? Yes, let me end by saying that Paul Mackenzie is speaking symbolically for the religio-cultic new religious movements that are mushrooming in the 21st century Africa, and you may say the rest of the world. They interpret the Bible from an extremist position and even avoid theological training or education, as they will always say, or they claim that the Holy Spirit is sufficient trainer. Why be trained by a human being? They are all foreign. The Holy Spirit is perfect and saintly. Why do we waste money training? We know the Bible itself is self-training. Why not just read the Bible for yourself? Well, it looks good. You may be trapped somewhere on the way because you are disconnected from your people you can share readings at once. So you are disconnected. You can't share. So you are there getting indoctrination, radicalization. You are misread and you can't go anywhere. So they reject decency and eventually end up as con artists. One cannot be sure where they will end or how far their outfits would be useful to society. You may not know. Second, Paul Mackenzie displays the big man syndrome that visible among the new religious movements. You can see it is visible. That big man syndrome, big persons, it can even be a woman, big woman syndrome, big person syndrome. These cultic leaders, these near deity personalities, anyway, this big person syndrome is a phenomenon where the leader is elevated to a deity or a god. His or her word is law, and the people are psyched to fear him. They instill fear, not really inspire, but they actually instill fear so that you fear this one. You can't even when you are told to kill yourself, you can't say anything. Now, these big men or big persons are also visible in politics. Politics we have even in Kenya and other, in politics, in economics, and other life domains. This big men syndrome, they are there and they are dangerous than anything else because they are not democratic. They are not out for discussion, debate. They say you listen. They say you do. Whether you are told to do wrong, yes. Well, Africa does not need strong men, but strong institutions. These big persons keep on emerging every now and then. From time to time, you find them. Now, these emerging big persons and saintly figures are the worst characters that Africa has ever encountered from within since the days of slavery and slave trade. because during this time of slavery and slave trade or even colonialism, there are always collaborators who would fight their own. But this looks like some of the worst. If you are forced to die in such a painful way and see somebody being radicalized to kill his own child, where children were buried in one place, in a makes those in a very poor graves, that were not dug deep enough, and they were buried like 10 of them at a go, as we have been seeing in the media. Now, when you see people reaching that level of madness, really, that is even worse than slavery, slave trade, because slave trade you could return later. Colonialism, the colonialist would go, but in death, that's final. So this could be the worst case in Kenya's historiography. Fortunately, Shakahora massacre and Paul Mackenzie, they are fortunately a wake-up call. They are waking us up to think deeply, to think, and through thinking through, it will help Kenya and the rest of Africa to remain vigilant as Pharaoh is within Africa. And he is our neighbor, whom we trust with leadership. We trust and him or her with the instrument of power. Instruments of power, we trust him with it. And we actually trust heavily. We trust Pharaoh, not the liberator, but the oppressor. It's the oppressor who is actually loved more, liked more, worshipped more, taken care of as we suffer. We let. So this is speaking. This is, in my view, this is a very symbolic moment. It's a moment of, learning how we could be more Mackenzies than we ever thought. We are literal Mackenzies in one way or the other. Maybe even at family levels, we are Mackenzies. Maybe even at institutional levels, we could have Mackenzie in us, a spirit of Mackenzie in us. There could be Mackenzie-ism, a spirit of Mackenzie, in a sense that you not worry, you are eating very well, your people are eating and cooking in the forest somewhere, people who are dying there could feel the aroma as you cook food, you roast your meat and you are eating and you are forcing them to, and your work is to wait for them to die and then you bury them quickly without even consulting anybody. So yes, we can say yes. One, Paul Mackenzie is arrested. The man is already arrested as we talk. And now, in May and April 2023, he is in police cells. But what about the other socio-political Mackenzies in government offices, in mainland churches, in the economic sector, in the universities, in colleges, in schools, in primary schools, in secondary schools, where they are murdering students with irrelevant syllabuses of the 20th century and 19th century that cannot help move Africa. They cannot help anybody to grow the economy of Africa. So there could be more Mackenzies if we go along. We may find more and more of Mackenzies in every one of us. I think the challenge here is to find out where Africa has lost, because Mackenzie could be speaking symbolically, and metaphorically we are Mackenzies in where we fail and society. If we trust you and you fail us, even if you are an elected leader, you are put there by votes, voted in by universal suffrage, but at the end of the resort, you mess economies, you mess innocent people, you make false promises you not fulfill. There is a lot of Paul Mackenzie in us, and it can be done. It's not late, it can be done. I think the challenge is to work out the spirit that is not building a community that we are supposed to take care of. Thank you very much.